If you have ever wondered how fast love can turn into weather, stay with me, because Emily Carter learned the answer on the coldest night of her life. The front door closed with a hard metallic click, and the sound seemed louder than the thunder rolling across the Dallas sky. Emily stood on the porch in socks, an oversized sweater, and sweatpants that barely fit around her 8-month belly. Rain ran down the steps in silver lines. Her suitcase landed beside her with a dull thud. Then came a framed wedding photo, sliding face down through a puddle. Through the glass, she could still see Brandon Hayes. Calm. Dry. Perfectly composed. The same man who once cried when she said yes in a tiny apartment with second-hand furniture and no heat. Now he adjusted the cuff of his shirt and turned toward the woman standing in his living room. Vanessa Cole lifted a wineglass and smiled like she had just won something expensive. Emily pressed one hand beneath her stomach as the baby shifted hard inside her. Easy, sweetheart, she whispered, though her own breathing had turned shallow. Brandon opened the door only 3 inches, just enough for his voice to pass through. You should go to your sister's place, he said. We both know this marriage has been over for a while. Emily stared at him, rain dripping from her hair to the porch boards. Over for who, Brandon? Because this morning you kissed me goodbye. This morning you asked if I wanted blueberry pancakes. His jaw tightened. Don't make this dramatic. Vanessa laughed softly somewhere behind him. Emily looked past his shoulder and saw her own throw blanket folded over the couch, saw candles lit on the dining table, saw 2 plates set out where her family dinner should have been. The baby kicked again, stronger this time, as if protesting the scene. Brandon noticed her expression and exhaled like she was the inconvenience. I'll send money, he said. I'll have someone bring the rest of your things tomorrow. Then he glanced at her belly and added, we'll figure out arrangements later. Arrangements? Not our son. Not your child. Arrangements. Emily felt something colder than the rain move through her chest. She bent slowly, picked up the wedding frame, and turned it over. Their younger faces smiled back at her from 10 years ago. Brandon in a cheap suit. Emily in a borrowed dress. 2 people who believed loyalty could survive success. She set the frame gently on top of the suitcase. Fine, she said quietly. Brandon frowned, almost disappointed there were no tears. Fine? Emily met his eyes for the first time that night. One day you'll remember this door. You'll remember exactly who you closed it on. Thunder cracked overhead. For a moment no one moved. Then a sharp pain tightened across her abdomen and stole her breath. She gripped the porch rail. Another contraction. Too soon. Too strong. Brandon stepped back instead of forward. Emily saw it clearly then. Not anger. Not guilt. Fear of inconvenience. The door shut again. Lock. Silence. Rain poured harder. Emily lowered herself onto the top step, one hand on her belly, the other on the soaked suitcase. Across the street, headlights turned the corner and slowed in front of the house. A black SUV stopped at the curb. The driver's door opened, and a tall man in a dark coat stepped into the storm, staring straight at Brandon's house like he had been waiting years for this address. The man crossed the street through sheets of rain as if storms made room for him. Emily could barely focus through the pain twisting across her abdomen, but she noticed polished black shoes splashing through puddles, a charcoal coat already soaked at the shoulders, and a face she did not recognize. He stopped 2 feet away and crouched so his eyes were level with hers. Can you stand? He asked, voice calm and low. Emily tried to answer, but another contraction stole the words. She shook her head once. The stranger did not panic. He slid one arm behind her back, the other beneath her knees, careful of her belly, and lifted her as if she weighed nothing. Warmth from his coat wrapped around her for a second before the rain returned. Through the front window, Brandon appeared again. He stood frozen in the foyer, hand on the doorknob, watching another man carry away the wife he had just discarded. Their eyes met over Emily's shoulder. Something unreadable passed between them. Recognition. History. Debt. The stranger placed Emily gently into the passenger seat of the SUV and buckled the seat belt below her stomach with practiced care. He handed her a folded towel from the console. "Breathe with me," he said. 4 seconds in. 4 out. She followed because there was nothing else to hold on to. He moved around the hood, got in, and pulled away from the curb without once looking back. Rain hammered the windshield. Downtown lights blurred gold and white across the glass. Emily pressed the towel against trembling hands. "I do not even know your name," she said. "Daniel Brooks," he replied. "You are safe now," Emily blinked. "I did not tell you my name." Daniel kept his eyes on the road. "No, but I know who lives in that house." The statement sat between them heavier than the weather. Another contraction came sharp and fast. Daniel reached for the hands-free button on the dash. "Mercy, General," he said when someone answered. 8-month pregnancy. Active contractions. "We are 10 minutes out." Emily stared at him. "Why are you helping me?" He was quiet long enough that she thought he might ignore the question. Finally he said, "Because 10 years ago, someone should have helped me." The city hospital rose ahead, bright against the storm. Orderlies met them at the entrance with a wheelchair. Daniel stepped into the rain first, opened her door, and held out both hands. She took them. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Nurses asked questions in quick rhythm. Name. Due date. Allergies. Pain level. Emily answered what she could. Daniel answered what she could not. They wheeled her into triage, checked monitors, wrapped straps around her belly, and listened for the baby's heartbeat. The fast, steady sound filled the room like a small engine refusing to quit. Emily cried then, sudden and silent, from relief more than fear. A nurse squeezed her shoulder. "Baby sounds strong, honey. That is what matters tonight." Daniel stood near the doorway, rainwater still dripping from his coat hem. Most people would have left after drop-off. He did not move. A doctor entered, reviewed the monitor, and smiled. "False labor brought on by stress and dehydration. The baby is fine. But you need rest, fluids, and no excitement." Emily almost laughed at the impossible prescription. No excitement. Somewhere in Dallas, her marriage was ending over candlelight and imported wine. Daniel stepped forward only after the doctor left. "There is a private recovery suite upstairs," he said. "Already arranged." Emily looked at him carefully now. The expensive watch. The quiet authority. The way staff nodded when he spoke. "Who are you really, Daniel Brooks?" He met her gaze for the first time since the porch. Just a man Brandon Hayes should have treated better. Then his phone lit up. On the screen, one headline flashed from a business alert. Hayes Technologies files for public offering next month. Daniel smiled without warmth and slipped the phone back into his pocket. Morning arrived pale and quiet through the hospital window, the kind of light that makes hard nights look unreal. Emily woke beneath clean white sheets with an intravenous line in her arm and the steady rhythm of her son's heartbeat still echoing in memory. For one brief second she forgot everything. Then she saw the empty chair beside the bed and remembered the porch, the rain, the locked door, the word arrangements. A nurse entered carrying oatmeal, orange juice, and a tablet for discharge forms. "Someone already handled your bill," she said cheerfully. "Private suite too. Must be nice to have generous family." Emily almost corrected her, then stopped. Daniel was not family. He was something more dangerous than that. Unknown. After breakfast she stood carefully and walked to the window. 12 floors below, Dallas moved like nothing had happened. Traffic lights changed. People carried coffee. Deliveries were made. Somewhere across the city, Brandon was likely in a pressed shirt explaining away last night as if human beings were scheduling errors. Her phone had died in the storm, but the nurse brought a charger and soon the screen lit with missed calls. 3 from her sister Rachel. 2 from Brandon. 1 voicemail. Emily listened with the sound low. Brandon's voice came polished and impatient. "Emily, let us be adults about this. I was upset. Vanessa has already left. Call me so we can discuss next steps. No apology, No concern for the baby. Just next steps. She deleted it. Then another message arrived in real time. Brandon again. Also, do not speak to anyone about personal matters that could affect the company. Emily laughed once, dry and stunned. Even now, image first. A soft knock came at the door. Daniel entered carrying a garment bag and a paper cup of coffee. Real coffee this time, he said. Hospital coffee is a crime. Emily studied him in daylight. Mid-40s maybe. Trim beard. Controlled posture. The kind of stillness expensive people learn after winning too often. You arranged all this? She asked. Yes. Why? Daniel set the coffee down before answering. Because I know what Brandon does when people are vulnerable. He sat across from her, elbows on knees. 10 years ago I founded a software logistics company out of a rented storage unit. Brandon worked for me then. Smart, ambitious, hungry. I trusted him. Emily listened without blinking. Daniel continued. He copied our client list, courted investors behind my back, and launched Hayes Technologies using my product before I could secure patents. By the time I fought it in court, he had money, attorneys, and a cleaner story. I lost everything. Emily felt the room narrow. He told me he built it alone, she said softly. Daniel gave a humorless smile. Men rarely frame theft as teamwork. Silence settled between them. Outside, a helicopter crossed the skyline. Inside, the baby monitor on her bedside table ticked steadily. So you came for revenge, Emily said. Daniel considered the word. I came because I heard he was taking his company public next month. Then last night I saw him throw away the one person who actually built a life with him. He glanced at her stomach. Some opportunities arrived disguised as storms. Emily should have been offended. Instead, she understood. Brandon had made enemies while calling it success. Daniel stood and handed her the garment bag. Inside was a soft maternity dress, comfortable flats, and a wool coat. Rachel is driving in from Fort Worth, he said. She will be here in 20 minutes. I asked my assistant to pick these up in your size. Emily touched the coat sleeve, speechless. Daniel moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing. He placed a thin folder on the table beside the untouched discharge papers. Across the front was stamped Hayes Technologies Confidential. If Brandon contacts you again, read page 7 first. He left before she could ask another question. Emily opened the folder with shaking hands. The first page was financial projections. The second listed offshore transfers. By page 7, her breath stopped. There, under a pending executive compensation package, was one line item marked after public offering settlement reserve for spouse claim. Beside it, in Brandon's handwriting scanned from notes, were 4 words. Keep her quiet cheaply. Rachel arrived wearing sneakers, no makeup, and the expression of a woman already prepared to hate someone on sight. She crossed the room in 3 fast steps and wrapped Emily in a careful hug around the belly. I leave town for one sales conference, and you start auditioning for disaster movies, she said, voice shaking despite the joke. Emily laughed for the first time since the storm, then cried for the second. 40 minutes later they were in Rachel's townhouse in Fort Worth, a narrow brick place filled with plants, mismatched pillows, and the smell of cinnamon candles. It was not luxury. It was safety. Emily slept 12 straight hours on the guest bed while rain tapped softly against the window. When she woke, Rachel was in the kitchen with a laptop open, coffee brewing, and the sharp look she wore before negotiating commissions. Sit down, she said. We need facts before feelings. Emily slid into a chair and handed over Daniel's folder. Rachel read page 7 twice. Then a third time. Keep her quiet cheaply, she repeated. Wow. He really wrote the villain line down. By noon they had called an attorney Rachel trusted from a previous real estate dispute. By 3, Emily had learned something Brandon never expected her to know. Texas community property laws were not suggestions. Years spent supporting a marriage had measurable value. Contributions behind closed doors still counted. Emails, calendars, unpaid labor, relocation records, business entertaining, investor dinners she hosted, branding ideas she suggested in late-night conversations, all of it mattered. Emily sat very still as the attorney spoke through speakerphone. Mrs. Carter, did you ever sign a postnuptial agreement? No. Did you pause your career to support his growth? Yes. Did you participate in company functions and networking? Constantly. Then he may have underestimated the cost of replacing you. Rachel nearly applauded. By evening, Brandon was calling every hour. Emily let them ring. Then came flowers. White roses with a note that read, "Let us reset." She sent them back unopened. Then came a luxury car service waiting outside Rachel's townhouse. She ignored it. Finally, Brandon appeared himself just after sunset, standing on the front walk in loafers that had never met mud. Rachel looked through the peephole and smiled dangerously. "Oh good," she said. "Entertainment." Emily stayed seated at the kitchen table, while Rachel opened the door only halfway. "You have 60 seconds," she said. Brandon removed his sunglasses, though the sun was already down. "I am here for my wife." Rachel checked her phone. 55 seconds. Brandon stepped inside anyway, carrying the scent of expensive cologne and practiced confidence. "Emily," he said, softening his voice immediately. "There you are. I have been worried sick." Emily stared at him over a mug of tea. "You sent orchids to the wrong address last Christmas," she said. "But today you found me in 6 hours. Impressive recovery." His smile flickered. "I know you are upset. Last night got out of hand. Vanessa manipulated the situation. We both said things." "We did not both say things," Emily replied. "You said enough for both of us." Brandon crouched beside her chair as if proximity could substitute for remorse. "I panicked. The company is weeks from going public. Stress is high. Investors watch everything. I need stability right now." There it was. Not love. Need. Rachel leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "Wrong speech, genius." Brandon ignored her. "Come home, Emily. We will get a nurse, renovate the nursery, take a vacation after the baby comes. We can start fresh." Emily placed one hand on her belly as her son rolled gently inside. "Start fresh with what?" "Memory, Brandon. The porch one or the note where you priced my silence." His face changed so quickly it was almost art. "Who gave you that file?" "So it was real. Not a forgery. Not a misunderstanding." Emily stood slowly. "For years I thought I was standing beside a builder. Turns out I was standing beside a borrower who never intended to repay anyone." Brandon's voice hardened. "You do not know what you are doing." Emily met his gaze without blinking. "For the first time in a decade, I think I do." Rachel opened the door wide. "Time is up." Brandon stepped backward onto the porch, anger fighting panic in his eyes. As he turned to leave, a black sedan parked across the street. Daniel Brooks stepped out, looked directly at Brandon, and smiled like a man greeting an overdue bill. Some men hear the past coming before they see it. Brandon stopped at the curb with one hand on his car door, staring across the street at Daniel Brooks as if he had seen a ghost in a tailored coat. For 3 long seconds neither man spoke. Wind moved through the trees. Porch lights glowed warm across the quiet block. Then Daniel crossed the street with the same unhurried confidence he had worn in the storm. "Evening, Brandon," he said. Brandon recovered fast, the way polished men do. "Daniel Brooks. I heard rumors you were back in Texas." Daniel glanced at the house behind him. "I heard louder rumors about you." Rachel nearly laughed from the doorway. Emily remained inside, one hand resting on the kitchen counter, listening to voices through the screen door. Brandon straightened his jacket. "This is private family business." Daniel's smile did not move. "Throwing out your pregnant wife made it public the moment neighbors turned on their lights." Brandon's jaw tightened. "What do you want?" "Closure," Daniel said. "And perhaps timing." He looked past Brandon's shoulder at the sleek imported coupe parked in the driveway. "Nice car. Mine paid for the first one too." Brandon stepped closer, lowering his voice. "If this is about old lawsuits, they were settled." Daniel replied just as quietly. No, Brandon. They were survived. There is a difference. Rachel opened the door wider. Emily, you should hear this, she called. Emily walked onto the porch slowly, wrapped in Rachel's cardigan, calm in a way that surprised even her. Brandon's expression changed the moment he saw her. Softer eyes. Lower voice. Manufactured concern. Emily, please do not let this man manipulate you. He has hated me for years. Daniel chuckled once. I do not hate you, Brandon. Hate requires respect. Emily looked from one man to the other and realized something important. Brandon had always seemed tallest when no one else knew the truth. Daniel turned to her. I came only to tell you one thing. Next month's public offering depends on 3 anchor investors and a spotless narrative. Tonight, both are weaker than they were this morning. Brandon snapped. Stay out of my business. Daniel lifted a brow. You built your business by entering mine. Fair is fair. He handed Emily a business card embossed only with a name and number. If you need housing, legal resources, or security, call anytime. No obligation. No strings. Brandon scoffed. Still trying to play hero. Daniel met his stare. No. I already learned heroes lose to men like you. I am trying something else now. He nodded politely to Emily and returned to his sedan. Brandon watched the taillights disappear, then turned back with urgency he could no longer hide. Emily, listen to me carefully. Daniel wants revenge. He will use you to hurt me. Emily folded her arms. You say use like you are unfamiliar with the word. I made mistakes, Brandon said quickly. I was overwhelmed. Vanessa meant nothing. You mean less now, Emily answered. His face hardened again. You cannot seriously think you can fight me. Lawyers cost money. Court takes years. You need stability before the baby comes. Emily almost thanked him for finally speaking honestly. There it was again. Threat dressed as advice. Rachel stepped beside her with a tablet in hand. Funny timing, she said. Because social media says your mistress just posted from Cabo with someone named Trent and a caption that says upgraded. Brandon grabbed the tablet. His color drained. Emily watched the perfect image crack by degrees. Investor favorite. Loyal founder. Future family man. And now abandoned by the woman he chose over everything else. Brandon looked up, suddenly smaller. Emily, please. Come home tonight and we can fix this before people talk. She shook her head slowly. People are already talking. The difference is, for once, they are not talking about me. She closed the door gently. Through the glass she saw him standing alone under the porch light, checking his phone again and again. In the kitchen, Rachel poured tea. Emily sat down, exhausted but steady. Her phone buzzed with an unknown number. She answered. A woman's voice spoke fast and frightened. Mrs. Carter, my name is Linda. I work in accounting at Hayes Technologies. If you are leaving Brandon, there are things you need to know before midnight. Midnight has a way of making secrets sound louder. Emily moved to Rachel's home office while the rest of the townhouse went quiet. Rain had stopped, but water still dripped from the eaves outside like a clock counting down. She placed Linda on speaker and opened Rachel's laptop. The woman's breathing was fast, nervous. I cannot stay on long, Linda whispered. Security monitors company calls after hours. Emily exchanged a glance with Rachel. Start with the most important thing, Rachel said. Linda did not hesitate. Hayes Technologies is inflating numbers before the public offering. Deferred contracts are being counted as active revenue. Vendor debts were moved to shell companies. And there is one more account under a consulting budget. Emily's stomach tightened. What account? Linda lowered her voice further. Monthly transfers to someone named Vanessa Cole totaling $40,000. Rachel let out a low whistle. Romance is expensive. Emily felt no jealousy now, only clarity. Brandon had not chosen love over family. He had chosen appetite over responsibility. Linda continued. There are internal emails too. I copied what I could because I thought investors deserved the truth. Then I saw what happened tonight online. Someone posted security footage from your neighborhood. Brandon throwing luggage outside. Emily blinked. Online. Rachel was already typing. A local neighborhood page had uploaded grainy porch camera footage. No audio, just rain, a pregnant woman on the porch, a man tossing bags, another woman visible in the doorway. 50,000 views in 2 hours. Comments multiplied by the second. Protect her. Shameful. Never buying from this company. Brandon's image was cracking faster than glass in winter. Why help me? Emily asked quietly. Linda answered after a pause. Because 3 years ago my husband got sick. I asked Brandon for 2 unpaid weeks after using all my vacation days. He told me everyone has problems and deadlines do not care. Rachel's jaw clenched. Linda continued. You once brought meals to the office when staff worked late. You remembered my son's peanut allergy. Some people notice who is kind when they have no reason to be. Emily swallowed hard. Kindness had felt invisible for years. Apparently it had been collecting witnesses. Linda emailed a folder with spreadsheets, internal memos, and screenshots. Rachel downloaded everything to 2 drives immediately. Then she grinned the grin of a woman who loved leverage more than dessert. We need your attorney at 8 sharp, she said. Emily's phone buzzed again. Brandon. Then again. Then a text. Pick up now. This is out of control. Another text followed seconds later. I can fix everything if you stop talking. Emily stared at the screen. Interesting, Rachel said. He assumes your silence is a switch he owns. Emily typed only 4 words. Wrong number, Brandon. She blocked him. At 7:30 the next morning, before coffee was finished, black SUVs lined Rachel's street. 2 men in suits stepped out carrying folders. One rang the bell. Rachel opened the door with her camera already recording. Good morning, one man said stiffly. We represent Hayes Technologies. We are here with a confidentiality agreement and a generous temporary support package. Rachel laughed so hard she had to lean on the wall. Emily walked into the foyer, calm and barefoot. The lawyer straightened. Mrs. Carter, if you sign today, we can provide immediate housing, transportation, and a discretionary payment of $200,000. In exchange, you agree not to discuss private marital or corporate matters publicly. Emily looked at the papers but did not touch them. Yesterday I was worth cheap silence, she said. Today I am worth $200,000. What changed overnight? The lawyer did not answer. Rachel did. The stock blogs. She held up her phone. Headlines were spreading. Founder's domestic scandal threatens offering. Questions emerge over executive conduct. Emily handed the packet back untouched. Tell Brandon rates go up when panic starts. The men left without another word. Rachel shut the door and turned to Emily with shining eyes. You know what today is, right? Emily shook her head. Rachel smiled slowly. Today is the first day he realizes you were never the dependent one. Before Emily could answer, another email arrived. Sender, Daniel Brooks. Subject line, Anchor Investor Meeting moved forward. Body, be ready by noon. Wear something unforgettable. Noon arrived dressed like judgment. Rachel drove Emily into downtown Dallas beneath a sky polished blue after 2 days of storms. The city towers flashed sunlight off glass and steel, each building pretending permanence. Emily wore the maternity dress Daniel had sent, navy wool coat, low heels, and the calm face of a woman too tired for fear. Her belly sat high and round, the baby shifting every few minutes as if aware something important was coming. Where exactly are we going? Emily asked. Rachel glanced at the GPS and grinned. Somewhere rich people panic quietly. The car turned beneath the porte cochere of the Crescent Meridian Hotel, where fountains ran year-round and valets moved like choreography. Inside, marble floors reflected chandeliers the size of small cars. Men in tailored suits checked watches worth mortgages. Women carried folders and practiced smiles. Daniel Brooks stood near a private conference room speaking with two executives. When he saw Emily, he ended the conversation immediately. "Perfect timing," he said. "You look stronger already." "I feel stronger," Emily answered, surprising herself with the truth. Daniel offered his arm only as support, not possession. "Today is simple," he said as they walked. 3 anchor investors were supposed to commit final capital to Brandon's public offering. They requested a private meeting after last night's footage spread. "They want reassurance," Rachel whispered. "Please tell me we are the opposite of reassurance." Daniel almost smiled. "Very much so." Through the open conference doors, Emily saw Brandon at the far end of a long table. He was speaking rapidly beside 2 attorneys and a public relations consultant. The moment he noticed her, every sentence died in the room. Investors turned. Screens paused. Pens stopped moving. Brandon stood so quickly his chair rolled backward. "Emily," he said, forcing warmth into a voice gone thin. "What are you doing here?" Daniel answered before she could. "Correcting assumptions." He guided Emily to an empty chair near the center of the table. No one objected. Power often sounds like permission. One investor, a gray-haired woman from Chicago, folded her hands. "Mrs. Carter, we appreciate your presence. There are concerns regarding executive stability and reputational exposure." Brandon jumped in. "My wife and I are resolving private matters." Emily looked at him. "We are not resolving anything. We are documenting it." Silence hit the room like weather. Another investor leaned forward. "Is it true you were removed from the marital home while expecting a child?" Brandon started to speak again. Emily lifted one finger and he stopped, perhaps for the first time in their marriage. "Yes," she said. "During a storm. With luggage. While another woman waited inside." Rachel coughed into her hand to hide a laugh. Brandon's attorney objected weakly. "This is irrelevant to valuation." Daniel slid a folder down the table. "Then perhaps deferred revenue recognition will feel more relevant." Linda's documents, professionally tabbed and highlighted, spread like spilled ink. The gray-haired investor opened the first page and her expression cooled by 10 degrees. Brandon turned to his finance officer. "What is this?" The man stared at the papers and said nothing. Emily watched realization move across the room one face at a time. Investors did not fear scandal nearly as much as dishonesty. Brandon looked back at Emily, panic finally visible. "Why are you doing this?" She almost pitied him for asking. "Because when you locked the door, you taught me what side I was on." Daniel's phone buzzed. He glanced down, then addressed the room. "For transparency, Brooks Capital is withdrawing all strategic support and declining future participation." 2 other investors immediately exchanged looks. One closed his folder. Another stood. "We will revisit after an independent audit," he said. Translation required no explanation. The deal was bleeding out in real time. Brandon moved toward Emily as the room emptied. "Please, just talk to me privately." She rose carefully, one hand on her belly. The baby kicked hard, steady and alive. She smiled for the first time that day. "He knows timing better than you do." Brandon reached for her sleeve but stopped himself when Daniel stepped between them with effortless calm. Security appeared at the door moments later, summoned by someone no one saw. As Emily turned to leave, a sharp warmth ran through her lower back. She paused. Then another. Stronger. Rachel's eyes widened. "Emily. Was that a contraction?" Daniel looked at his watch. "Noon exactly." Emily inhaled slowly and nodded. "Looks like someone else is done waiting too." Some endings arrived disguised as beginnings. Emily steadied herself against the polished hallway wall while another contraction rolled through her body, deeper this time, slower and undeniable. Around her, executives hurried past pretending not to stare. Rachel was already in command mode, purse open, phone out, keys ready. "We are going to the hospital now," she said. Daniel nodded once and spoke into his phone with the clipped calm of someone used to being obeyed. "Car at the east entrance. Mercy General. Maternity admitting alerted." Brandon pushed through the conference room doors behind them, tie loosened, face stripped of confidence. Emily, wait. Please. Let me come with you. Rachel turned so sharply he nearly walked into her. Amazing timing, she said. Where was this energy on the porch? Brandon ignored her and focused only on Emily. I am the father. Emily breathed through another contraction and answered without anger. Biology is not the same as showing up. Daniel opened the elevator and stood aside for her first. Brandon followed them in any way. The doors closed on 5 people and too much history. No one spoke until the elevator descended past the 20th floor. Then Brandon tried again. I know I failed you. I know I made terrible choices. But let me do this one thing right. Emily kept her eyes on the floor numbers changing. The problem with men like Brandon was not that they made one terrible choice. It was that they called patterns accidents. Outside, a black SUV waited curbside. Daniel helped Emily in back beside Rachel. Brandon reached for the opposite door, but Daniel blocked it gently with one hand. Not today, Daniel said. Brandon's temper flashed. You do not get to decide that. Daniel's voice stayed level. She already did. The car pulled away, leaving Brandon under the hotel awning as cameras from 2 local business reporters suddenly appeared near the entrance. Even consequences had timing. Mercy General received them like a practice storm. Nurses moved quickly, monitors were strapped on, questions asked, paperwork handled by Rachel before anyone finished the sentence. Emily changed into a gown and gripped the bed rail as contractions settled into a pattern 5 minutes apart. Her son's heartbeat filled the room in steady rhythm. Strong and stubborn, the nurse said with a smile. Must take after his mother. Daniel waited outside the room, pacing only once every 20 minutes, which for him apparently counted as panic. Rachel returned from the vending machine with crackers and gossip. Brandon is in the lobby, she announced. Security says he keeps asking if fathers get updates. Emily almost laughed through a contraction. Tell them to ask if husbands who abandon their wives get updates. 2 hours later, the doctor checked progress and nodded. It is time. The room sharpened into bright lights, focused voices, purposeful movement. Emily forgot hotels, investors, betrayal, stock valuations, all of it. Pain narrowed the world to breathe and effort, and the fierce instinct to bring someone safely forward. Rachel held one hand. A nurse held the other. Through the doorway Emily saw Daniel standing back, respectfully distant, eyes lowered as if guarding something sacred. Then one final push, one cry that seemed to split the whole day open, and a new voice filled the room. Thin. Loud. Perfect. Tears hit Emily's cheeks before she felt them. The doctor placed a warm, red-faced baby boy against her chest. Hello there, she whispered. We made it. The child quieted almost immediately, tiny fingers opening against her skin. Rachel sobbed without shame. Even the nurse dabbed at one eye. The doctor smiled. 7 pounds 4 ounces? Healthy lungs. Healthy heartbeat. Healthy everything. Emily looked down at the face tucked against her. Brandon's eyes. Her chin. A future still unwritten. The nurse asked softly, Have you chosen a name? Emily kissed the baby's forehead. Yes, she said. Ethan. Strong. Enduring. At that exact moment, the room television mounted in the corner switched to a breaking business alert. Hayes Technologies delays public offering amid fraud review and investor withdrawal. Rachel pointed at the screen in disbelief. Emily only smiled at her son. Some births happened twice in one day. 3 days later, the flowers arrived first. White orchids in a crystal vase taller than the hospital bassinet, delivered with a handwritten card that simply said I am sorry. No signature was needed. Emily asked the nurse to place them in the hallway. Apologies that need decoration rarely carry weight. Ethan slept beside her in the clear crib, one fist curled near his cheek, breathing in tiny measured sighs that made the whole room feel honest. Rachel sat in the window chair scrolling headlines like a woman reading sports scores. Listen to this one, she said. Former Darling founder faces investigation after investor collapse. Another says executive misconduct compounds financial concerns. She looked up and grinned. You, my dear sister, have accidentally become excellent timing. Emily smiled faintly and adjusted Ethan's blanket. Timing had not been accidental. It had simply arrived late. A soft knock came at the door. Daniel stepped in carrying coffee, fresh fruit, and a stuffed elephant wearing a blue bow tie. For the young man, he said, placing it near the crib. Ethan opened his eyes at the sound of Daniel's voice, dark and curious. Daniel looked unexpectedly moved. He has your calm, Rachel said. Impossible, Emily answered. He met me 3 days ago. Another knock followed. Firmer this time. The room changed before the door even opened. Brandon stood there in the same expensive coat from the hotel, though now it hung looser somehow. No tie. No confidence. Just exhaustion polished into shape. Security downstairs said 5 minutes, he said quietly. Rachel rose at once. You get 2 if I stay standing. Emily considered him, then nodded once. Rachel moved to the hallway with Daniel, who paused only long enough to meet Brandon's eyes with unreadable calm. Then the door closed. Brandon stepped closer to the crib and looked down at his son. All rehearsed language abandoned him. He swallowed hard. He is beautiful. Emily said nothing. Brandon reached one finger toward Ethan's hand, then stopped short of touching. May I? Emily looked at the child, then back at the man who had nearly missed this beginning. You may sit, she said. Brandon sat carefully in the chair beside the bed. For a moment there was only the hum of hospital air vents and Ethan's soft breathing. I lost the board this morning, Brandon said at last. Interim leadership takes over next week. Investigators have my laptop, my accounts, everything. Vanessa sold stories to a blog. My attorney says it will get worse before it gets worse again. Emily almost admired the honesty hidden inside self-pity. Why are you telling me this? Because none of it feels like the punishment that matters. He looked at her then, truly looked, perhaps for the first time in years. I threw away the only person who loved me before I had anything. Tears filled his eyes but did not fall. I stood outside a nursery window yesterday, and realized strangers had seen my son before I did. Emily felt no triumph, only distance. Pain had once lived where distance now stood. Brandon leaned forward. I am asking for a chance to be a father. Not a husband. I know I forfeited that. Just a chance to show up now. Ethan stirred, then began to fuss. Instinctively Emily lifted him and settled him against her shoulder. The baby quieted at once. Brandon watched the motion like a man witnessing a language he never learned. Showing up now is not a speech, Emily said softly. It is diapers at 3 in the morning. It is pediatric appointments. It is consistency when nobody applauds. It is child support paid on time without reminders. It is birthdays that are not rescheduled for meetings. It is respect for the mother even after love is gone. Brandon nodded slowly, each word landing where excuses used to live. Tell me what to do. Emily met his eyes with calm that had cost her everything and given it back. We go through the court. We build boundaries first. Trust, if it ever returns, arrives last. Brandon lowered his head. I understand. He stood, hesitated, then placed a small envelope on the table. The deed to the house has been transferred to you and Ethan. No conditions. Emily did not touch it. Some gifts are only delayed debts. At the door Brandon turned once more. I did love you, Emily. She adjusted Ethan against her shoulder and answered without bitterness. You loved having me. Learn the difference. He left quietly. Through the window, morning sun poured across the city. Ethan yawned, then slept. Emily kissed his forehead and smiled. Some men lose everything they own just to learn what a woman's dignity was worth.